So welcome to this week's Roundtable. We're talking about creating a personal retreat. And lots of people do this over, the last couple centuries, but usually it's specifically a writing retreat, or it's a spiritual retreat, like a silent meditation for a weekend, or it's an artist retreat, where you go to a beautiful place in nature and, set up your paint and you paint the lilies or the lavender or the lake and the mountains. So there's a trend of doing personal retreats at home and just turning everything off. So we'll just talk about that and we'll see what you guys have an experience in terms of retreats. So as always, we will start with slides. Here we go. So this is more of what a personal retreat looks like today. Take yourself out to someplace quiet, have a mug of tea, and then contemplate whatever it is you're working on or thinking through or planning. And here's another way. Maybe go up high, involve a hike and some connection with nature, and make sure it's quiet, so you don't have traffic noise or sirens. You're actually involved in nature to kind of settle your nervous system down while you do your personal retreat. I'm sharing resources below about different methods people have used to do retreats. Of course, you can join a retreat that somebody else is hosting. Wendy Colonna, who's on our team of coaches, recently did a retreat here in Central Texas. And so I've been on a forgiveness retreat before that a church offered. So sometimes you can join a retreat organized by others or create a personal one for yourself. So we mentioned a spiritual retreat for things for you guys to think about, a writing retreat, sometimes turning off the distractions and saying, I'm going to sit with my journal for 2 hours, then I'm going to have lunch, then I'm going to listen to my playlist, then I'm going to sit with my journal for 2 more hours, or whatever it looks like, to kind of process and get through things. An artist retreat just lets you kind of reconnect with your creativity. If you have a block around that, or you just need the creative release, I think we've all had the experience of we're doing some kind of head down work, whether we're working on a spreadsheet or we're typing code or we're catching up on emails. And then you get up and go do something else. You walk the dog or you prepare the dinner. And now that you don't have that head down work, new ideas come to you because you're engaged in something connected to nature or connected to creation, like food, and new ideas just come and flow because you're in a different state of mind. Another popular retreat is a detox retreat. So people who are trying to improve their diets but have trouble kicking sugar or kicking carbs, or have discovered an allergy like a gluten allergy, especially places that will do the prepared meals for you. You can adjust your palate, go through 2 or 3 days without that food and get through the cravings of that early change, and then adopt those practices, in your daily life. And then common in the month of August is a tech retreat where you disconnect from social media. You don't watch the news. Maybe you take a weekend or two to leave the house and be someplace else on holiday, but you're not on your phone and you're not engaged in news. You're just sort of dropped out of the modern news cycle and the things going on in the world. And then you step back in September, catch up on what you missed. So I hope that's given us fodder for our discussions. And we'll now turn to the memes. Okay, If you see me talking to myself, I'm having a staff meeting. So that would be me because I work from an office at home. At the top, if somebody tells you that you have enough craft supplies and you don't need any more, stop talking to them. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. So I have a couple of friends that do painting and crafting, and it really is a wonderful stress release for them. And they do find themselves at the stores on the regular, adding new supplies to try new things. So down below, sorry for being so anxious earlier. I had no idea everything would be fine. This reminds me of Jonathan. I think, Jonathan, you tend to give that prescription. Actually, when we're done, everything's going to be fine. So I understand you're anxious now, but heads up, when we're done, everything's going to be fine. I like the one for meditation. I think this is a lemur. Come on, inner peace. I don't have all day. When you take a retreat, you do slow down your time, and maybe we don't know how wound up we are until we unwind and realize. Somebody said this week, even the slow lane is the fast lane now. Everything is changing so fast. There's no more slow lane. And so it might be more important to give yourself a personal retreat, give yourself a 24-hour timeout and kind of, readjust from time to time. I like this bottom one for artists. This artist is also a writer. And then they say an aside, I like to suffer creatively twice. This one is for Brian, and I had to send it to him because he's not here today. And it says, Jonathan, for you also, here's a guru on a mountaintop with headphones. It says, have you tried turning off your conscious mind and then turning it back on again? What you would do for a computer to reboot it. Maybe we turn it off and then turn it back on again. Wait, you can turn the conscious mind off?
Yes.
Jonathan, you want to kick us off? Any thoughts about personal retreats, or have you been in a retreat format yourself? I'm just looking for your thoughts.
Yeah. Personally, I have been to retreats, but I have also created, even before I went to like the biggest one, I have created like where you were describing earlier, like mini retreats, like turning my cell phone on airplane mode, which I didn't know, but it seems like it's a luxury.
Airplane
Seems
mode.
like seems like not many humans can have that luxury nowadays,
Hmm.
because they have to be connected either for work or if they have kids, family members,
Yeah.
friends, relatives, and all kinds of things. So
Mhm.
uh, once you have a taste of what it is, what it feels like to have a moment for yourself, it's pretty hard to let that go, even if you're surrounded by other humans that want to spend time with you. Like, for example, in relationships, even if you have the most amazing partner, you're gonna have to uh, take care of yourself, meaning taking some retreats,
Mhm.
even every day for a couple of minutes,
Mhm.
because attraction and everything in between when it comes to relationships grows in space.
Mhm.
So retreats, like mini or either mini or like extreme ones, which I have been like on extreme retreat when I went to India. When I was living with the monks, it was more extreme kind.
Mhm.
It was like what I also got to experience now that I remember the silence, but complete silence. Like no reading, no looking at people in the eyes,
Mhm.
no talking to anyone, just eating your food, doing your
Mhm.
practices, and go back to sleep, wake up,
Mhm.
do it all over again. That was like 3 days in a row. After the first 48 hours, I was like, this is harder than it sounds like, because
Mhm.
in your regular life, you're not used to not speaking or talking to anyone for
Mhm.
more than, who knows,
Mhm.
12 hours or 6 hours.
Mhm.
Um, but personally, I love it. I think it's I do not know how someone cannot not take um, some time for themselves during every single day, either at home in the sauna. Now, for somebody that hasn't tried to do a something as specific like whole retreat, I'm pretty sure that if you're not from the new generation, which one is the newest generation? Z or
The
which?
Zoomers, yeah.
Zoomers? Yeah, okay. So if you're not that from that generation, I'm sure everybody has had an experience where when they were younger, there was not such a thing as being connected 24/7. Like you will do your work, but then work was over and then you had to be present in the moment, either playing or with your kid. Even if you were watching, like, let's say TV or listening to the radio, you were actually focused on the activity. Like you were watching the movie, act like paying attention. Now it's all a mess because you're watching a movie, but then we have the phone and then the laptop and then the other TV in the background. It's like a complete contamination of senses. Um, so yeah, taking a time, and it doesn't have to be that much time. I mean, some people they have very busy schedules, right?
Mhm.
But it doesn't take that long, honestly. Sometimes, believe it or not, like 5 minutes can make a huge difference. Just like before you leave your house, creating like a cocoon of good energy for yourself. It takes you what, 5 minutes, four? It's a lot of work, but it's worth it, and it's amazing to me.
I love that. Well, I think some of the daily rituals, that quiet morning cup of tea with nothing turned on yet, get to
Yeah,
the bottom of your cup of tea before you turn on your email or you begin to get ready for your day.
before they start bombarding you, which I believe should be illegal. It's a crime. It's a fucking crime what they have done and they keep doing. But yeah, they are going to bombard you from all angles. So it is your responsibility to take some time, get rid of the nonsense, and yeah, it's like a reset. It's going. You're ready then, starting fresh.
I love that. There's someone I know who used to do an annual birthday retreat. But she was raising kids, and there was basketball practice and soccer practice and homework and birthday parties and sleepovers and, a family life. And so she had to make specific plans to take herself out on a weekend camping trip once a year. Her and the dog and a campfire in a tent, and her journal. And so she could kind of reset what happened this year, what's going forward next year around her birthday. But she had to, remove herself from kind of her daily busyness because she had family life going on. And now her children are grown and her everyday life is a retreat. She takes breaks to work and goes back into her chill, however I want it to be, sort of life that she's designed for herself. So, but I think there are seasons of life where there's a lot of busyness. A lot of people are counting on you. And so you really have to construct a way to have time for yourself, some time to be quiet and reset. Dean, do you have some thoughts about this? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. There we go.
Yes. A couple of things that both of you have said that were things that struck me. The first thought I had was when we think about retreat, let's think about what the word even means. It means pulling back, in this case, from your normal sort of activities. And it would seem to me that the first question we want to ask is, why do I live a life where I need to pull back from it? And so that the idea of a retreat, and I'm certainly not negative about that, but I think that it does raise for us if we spend, say, 5% of our time in retreat, our experience in that retreat time, its very purpose is to raise questions about the other 95%.
Yes.
And so to I suppose that even at a deeper level, raises the question of how do I want my day-to-day experience of life to feel? What do I want my day-to-day experience to as a person to be? And the reason that people need some kind of retreat, most people need some kind of retreat, is because they have not been intentional about those other questions.
Mhm.
And our culture, with its over the top emphases on productivity, wealth creation, the human being as a sort of economic producer.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, our culture is all about one way or another convincing people that they are means to some end greater than themselves. Essentially, and that's essentially almost always economic, right? So that you go to work and your purpose there is to serve as a part of a larger scheme to increase shareholder wealth, for example. And so when we are in retreat, we cease to be these beings whose purpose is to be used for something else. We cease to be a means. And when we enter what we're calling retreat mode, we become the end. We become what we really are, which is our ends in ourselves.
Mhm.
And and we can begin to ask, how how do I fulfill what my real ends are, which are always something like spiritual growth, to know God and enjoy Him forever, um, the fulfillment of all my innate capacities. And so I think my first point is that we live in a culture of fakeness in a way,
Mhm.
and that to retreat is to become to place yourself in a position where you are more able to sort of connect with the reality of what kind of being we are in the first place.
Mhm.
And that's very important because most people don't know. And that's why, like Jonathan is saying, like after the first 48 hours of a silent retreat, it becomes difficult because that's, I would assume, the point at which all of those questions kind of start to arise.
Mhm.
So, in terms of the personal retreat, I think Jonathan also touched on this. I think the first thing to do is to just remember how close the sort of meditative or spiritual world or the presence of God is, and to learn that we can kind of drop down to into it at will, and that there is a way of, even in the middle of a busy life, there is a way of taking moments of silence to drop down into that more contemplative, meditative space, so that we have, in a way, if we practice it, multiple retreats a day.
Mhm.
Now, and and so I think if people sort of take that seriously, the idea of larger and longer retreats seems much more reasonable, in the sense that you begin to sense that your default nature as a being is something other than the kind of uh, sort of superficial and hectic life that the our society demands that you live. And almost your hunger for a life in retreat increases. Now, just as we've been talking, I was thinking that the phrase living in retreat or a life in retreat might be a good book title.
There we go. Yeah.
And so yeah, so ultimately, maybe your personal retreat time is your whole life outside of the times when you are sort of economically forced to be in contact with the world. Now, and the other thing to say is what you were saying is that it's not just, I suppose it's not just economics that force you to be in contact with the world, but also interpersonal relationships. So, like, you do have children and they have needs, and you can't just spend all of your day in meditative contemplation or creative expression or whatever. But I suspect there's a way in which the demands of interpersonal relationships, if you handle them correctly, they are also expansive. They lead to a kind of expansion where being the um, executive manager of widget product line number 4 does not, right? And so that's not to say we don't ever need a break from interpersonal relationships, but that they exist kind of qualitatively in a different realm of being. You're talking to someone here who has a very monkish and contemplative
I was
bent.
going to say, you want to live on Walden Pond full time.
And so, so I have a lot of these kinds of thoughts. So, and I'm not sure if I'm really speaking to the question that you asked, but that's kind of my initial response. Maybe if there are more specific questions, I can speak more clearly to it.
Well, I was talking with Michelle Baker this week. We did a wonderful interview, and she helps people develop the confidence to pursue their dreams, the confidence to stir up the courage to design their lives. And she said the first thing that's the hardest for people to do is to pause and reflect.
Mhm.
What do I want? How did I arrive at this place? Why am I engaged in this activity for work? Where am I in my relationships? And it can take courage to stop and think about all of that, to actually look at the landscape of what's going on in your life. And when you go on personal retreat, that's the stuff that's bubbling up. When I took a forgiveness retreat, one of the things I noticed was something Jonathan mentioned. When I stepped out of my life to have a 3-day church retreat around forgiveness, um, I also stepped out of the lives of all the other people I'm involved with.
Mhm.
Somebody else looked after Brian for 3 days, and I was not there to support my family. I had taken a vacation day from the work that was paying my bills. So I vacated the spot I'm in for all these other people while I took myself apart. And they noticed the contribution I'm making to them because I wasn't making it right now. I was, absent from them. And while I was trying to fill my own cup of understanding around sorting through some forgiveness things I needed to do. And I remember wondering as I came back from the retreat, how do I keep like a cup of this with me all the time? Like, how do I keep this sense of I can be still and be centered? Of course, meditation does that for you. For some people, contemplative prayer or a process of mindfulness. So I think finding that internal grounding, it gives you the courage when you pause and reflect to take an honest look at how things are going and what's happening. And then say, do I still want this? And the people that I know that have come out of longer retreats, they make changes. They say no to the next committee. They say, I can't be driving carpool 3 days a week anymore. I'm 1 day a week and we need to find others. Whatever that looks like, they're reminded that they have a place in the world, part of which is for them and their fulfillment, not just fulfilling the duties you have to other people. And we can be swept away with the duties that we have to other people. Who am I if I'm not driving carpool, if I'm not making widget number 4 for the team at the factory? Who am I if I'm not supporting my parents or whatever that looks like? And there is a you that's none of those things that you need to stay connected to. And a personal retreat will let you kind of reflect on who am I when I'm not these labels that I live with. And you can like that you're doing those activities, but they can also overwhelm and reduce your own personal identity, your own connection to self.
As you're talking, it brings to mind. I've spent a lot of time studying the Enneagram of personality. I don't
Mhm.
know how familiar you guys are with that,
Yeah.
but I am a what's called I my Enneagram type is I'm a five, and the five is the one most likely to live in retreat, right? Um, and so it occurs to me too that when I speak in the way that I was speaking earlier, I have a personality type that's the most likely to just say, the whole social and economic world is meaningless. Let's just ignore it all and spend our lives watching woodpeckers and connecting emotionally with the meaning of that.
Mhm.
And I really wonder, and it may not be immediately obvious to me because of my own bent. There are people in the world whose personalities sort of drive them harder
Mhm.
and who in a way value a certain kind of achievement,
Mhm.
and value achievement and also value having power,
Mhm.
right? I mean, there are people
Mhm.
in the Enneagram scheme, it would be like an eight is a person who very much values having power, values the
Yeah, I am an eight
okay.
person.
Values power, values the ability to direct events,
Mhm.
um, et cetera, et cetera. So the eight, perhaps, in is the one. If to speak in terms of Lord of the Rings, the
Mhm.
eight is the most tempted to wear the ring because
Mhm.
the eight believes, and because the eight, and not out of necessarily selfish motives, but the eight sees how with power good can be produced.
Mhm.
Okay. And so there may be a mode of retreat that is more necessary
Mhm.
and more difficult for people
Mhm.
based on their personality, what in the Enneagram terms would kind of be called personality trappings.
Mhm.
Um, and that may even make it more important
Mhm.
for people with those styles. People with my styles almost need to live a life where we write down and force ourselves to actually do things like pay the bills,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
get anything done whatsoever, right? Um, and so I just making the note that
Mhm.
what retreat means and the function of retreat
Mhm.
might have a lot to do with sort of your innate personality leanings as well.
Jonathan, I'll have you speak to this. I know we've taught people to meditate and are meditators ourselves. And the more you build that muscle of meditation, the more you can sit still and be quiet and kind of go within. You sort of build that muscle memory of how to do that. There are sometimes two groups on a retreat, especially if it's a silent retreat. They put the extroverts where they can talk at the meals because it's too hard for the extroverts to have no communication with others. That's how they center themselves. They're interacting, with the others. They're filling their cup that way. And then there are introverts who wanted to be silent the whole time. Don't break my silence. Let me get 48 hours of silence in. And so, as we're all wired differently, there are people who are more fulfilled because they interact with other people, because they're out in a world. And it can be harder to be centered and alone and silent for them. But for others, it's a natural default to quietly read a book, have a cup of tea, and watch the birds out the window, and be perfectly happy with that. So I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to retreat, but dialing in your own way to pause and reflect, am I going where I wanted to go? Why did I pick this direction in the first place? Did I even pick it, or did it just fall together for me and now I'm doing it carried along in the river, of my life? What if I had a blank piece of paper and could choose something I found very fulfilling? What would that be? So an opportunity to pause and reflect can help course correct or do a little tweaking and pivot so that your life is more fulfilled and satisfied, however busy you want it to be. So there's a saying that the kids have FOMO, fear of missing out, and they want to pack their day. You know, they want to make sure they get the concert tickets, and they want to have birthday parties, and they want to, you know, get the new nail design on their fingers and participate in what's happening in the world, to be participating in the zeitgeist. And that fills their cup, and others just watch it happen. Look, that person painted their nails 10 different colors. I guess it's a thing. You know, you don't feel a need to join in in that. So I think for the different kinds of people, pausing and reflecting is a human need, but how you would go about doing it for yourself and for how long, I think you dial in. So, Jonathan, when you help people connect to their higher selves, when you help people shift some of the habits unconsciously that they're making, are some of them finding it more difficult than others in terms of being an extrovert or an introvert in the beginning stages with you?
It depends on the client. What I've noticed, for example, some humans, it takes a lot for them, for you, because for, let's say, for me to put someone under a like a relaxed hypnosis state, they have to actually have the mental capacity to focus. That's pretty much it. Because I'm just making them focus on one thing only. For that moment, my voice is the only thing they can think. So in a way, it's a kind of a silence for their own nonsense that is happening in their lives. Um, so it for everyone is different. Now, what I found is that the easiest way and fastest way to enter in that, or to have a taste of that realm of silence and like blissfulness, is to get in touch with reality. For example, I mean, most humans, they forget the reality of, even for the ones that are looking for extra power, we forget that we're going to die, and yeah, they're going to remember you for who knows how many millennia, but then that's it. Even the ones that are going to remember you are going to be dead. So at some point, even your whole legend is going to disappear. So that is something that it's a reality check, like your own mortality. Even if you're like the most successful CEO or a principal in a university, it doesn't matter, or the guy that cleans the restrooms at the gym. At the end, we all share the same reality, which is we are mortal. We have a very, very limited amount of time here. Therefore, it is a complete waste of life, um, overwhelming ourselves with mundane nonsense, or with which haircut am I going to get? Also, I was thinking, if you see someone with the same haircut all the time, that means they definitely need some retreat. They have to get in touch with themselves.
They're just conforming with other people's standards, sure.
Yeah, because they don't, like yesterday. This is a clear example of how humans, especially in United States, they're so driven by, I don't have time, I have to do hunger. So I decided yesterday, like I don't want to drive to the gym, but I have to go to the gym. But my concern was I really don't want to drive. So I just requested a ride, and then I was like, yeah, it's so comfortable. And then I looked, because I wasn't driving, so I was just enjoying the experience. I looked next to me, and there's this woman driving and eating like a hamburger with like, I don't even know how she was holding it. It was so huge. And she was like devouring the burger, and I was like, wow, this woman has no time to eat her like meal. That is huge. It makes an impact. And the worst thing, they don't even know what they're doing. They don't know all the everything that is happening as she's eating this a burger and like managing traffic and stuff, everything is going into your system, and you're just going to repeat the same cycle of like it's just horrible. It was like a horror movie when I was watching her. And then I thought, well, for each his own, you know? But there are ways to escape that. And one of them is, yes, taking some time for yourself. Even if the silent time means you have time to just be silent while you're eating, fine. Just turn your cell phone off. Oh, we're on airplane mode for 45 minutes.
Mhm.
Now, if you cannot do that, you have problems. And you should find someone that helps you. If you cannot go take a shit and not use your phone, you have some issues. So we can help because I'm sure everybody has had an experience like that. So it is extremely important to take some time for yourself so that you get the perspective of, well, yeah, I live in a physical world. I have to interact with somebody else to get my food, my other needs, but not losing track or like not losing that connection with the reality of this is temporary, and do not get too overwhelmed with a drama that is temporary, it's not forever.
Mhm.
So there are many ways to
I
get
think
it.
what you say there is so important that you can take back control of your time. So
Yes.
you have granted an employer to use up X amount of your time for Y amount of dollars. So that's an agreement that you've entered into. That doesn't mean you have to eat your hamburger in the car on the way there. So if
Yeah,
you
that's
plan
horrible.
your time better, right, you could say, I'm going to take a lunch hour or I'm going to eat after work and I'm going to sit down and have a relaxing meal. Imagine what's happening digestively while
And
you're
that,
stress of driving. You might kill yourself or somebody else, and your body's like, what are you doing to me, trying to get me to eat this hamburger while you're driving? So I understand that people can find themselves, oh my gosh, unexpectedly, I have to get in the car and go. But you can take back control of some parts of your life and not feel like other people are driving every minute of your everyday. And when you catch yourself, my God, I'm eating a hamburger in the car in traffic, you might
like,
say,
how do you manage the napkin part of it and the
well,
fries
Your
and the
your
milkshake?
suggestion of ordering a car, she could do that. You know, is it okay if I eat in your car? You're driving me, but I'm having my meal in the back seat of your car and relaxing a little bit. At least I'm not driving to and from the restaurant. I had kind of a break in my day. But with a little creativity or setting up a personal retreat, why am I driven? What are these pressures and responsibilities? What could I say no to or reallocate my time with that would give me some time to pause and reflect about the choices I'm making, the life I'm leading? Dean, I think you have a thought.
Refresh me. So you're asking me about what?
Taking your time back,
Mm.
how would you make different choices to say, oh, Um, if I work in a job and I literally don't have enough time to eat lunch, I'm going to find a way to pack a snack and I'm going to eat after work and enjoy my
Right.
meal. Let my body process it as the food and nutrition, the restoration it's supposed to be, instead of feeling like I'm on the run all the time. I mean, your nervous system will collapse after a while if you perpetually live like that.
I think for many people, it is fun to have their nervous system collapse.
They
Um,
think it.
and what I mean, I was just talking to someone this morning about this, and I honestly think that most people default to a kind of drama addiction,
Mhm.
and that being busy, as much as it may drain them, is exciting to them.
Mm, mm.
And also to be busy, but even better is to be busy and resentful about it.
Oh,
That is like exquisitely dramatic
mm,
because then you get to have like the excitement of I'm very important. I've got all this important stuff to do. And you
Mm,
also get the payoff of I'm also a sort of unfairly treated
mm,
victim,
mhm,
right? And so to be uh, super busy and resentful about it is, I think, a state that a lot of people unconsciously seek.
mhm,
And so the only way out of that is exactly what you're saying, which is stop
mhm,
and to allow a little silence to come in and to think of almost, I guess I almost think of silence as a kind of lubricant that allows your mind to slip out of its bonds, and that the whole world is about keeping you um in that bondage.
mhm,
And so that when you are in a position, so I think the first step to taking your time back is to look to see if you have been complicit in it for some reason, right? Like, what is the payoff that you've been getting for living this way? I
mhm,
think the other one is that most people never even think that they have a life. I think many people never even think, like, wait, I have a life that I could design, as opposed to just sort of, well, I went to high school, I did well, I went to college, I studied something that got me a good job, and now I'm here. Uh, and they think of themselves, I think, almost as a kind of production unit more than as a spiritual being who has its own end.
a
And
based robot performing
yes.
tasks.
And so part of taking your time back is to shift away from kind of the prescribed script for you into thinking, like you were saying, what is it that my soul actually longs for? What is it that I'm actually chasing? And to then begin consciously making decisions to move even slightly in that direction.
Mhm,
Beyond that, I think not despising very slight moves is a good skill to develop, right? So you want to read more, then it's okay to just listen to 5 minutes of an audiobook on your commute.
mhm,
And you just find slight ways to kind of slide in the direction that you know you want to be. And you just start sliding and keep sliding until your time is your own in a way that, so that even if you work full time for an employer, you're working for an employer whose mission and reflects your self-conscious and self-aware goals.
mhm. Where it's possible. One of the things I'm thinking of is, I don't know if it's so much true now, but certainly pre-pandemic, people wore their busyness as a badge of honor. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so in demand. Oh, I just don't have time. As an executive, when I hear that, I realize they have not matured to the
Mm,
point in their capacity where they have control of their time. They let other people take their time or demand it or plan it. And I'm so busy is not a brag. It's a reminder that you're not yet captain of your ship, that
mhm,
you're not yet in control of your schedule, your time, and you don't know how to say no. You don't know what to say yes to. People are pulling you in all directions, and you're bragging about the lack of control that you have about how you live your life. If I was hiring an executive and they were bragging about being busy, I would not hire them, because you have to be captain of your ship if you're going to lead people. And if you say, well, everything is just so busy on the ship, but I'm being pulled in 11 directions, not leadership material.
mm,
You're not yet rising to a level of excellence in terms of how you're managing your time. And as you say, Jonathan, whether you're the custodian or whether you're the principal, you can have control about how you engage in your life, about what the choices are that you are making that finds it fulfilling for you. And I don't know, let's go around the table for some last thoughts on the value of a personal retreat, pausing and reflecting, carving out some time for writing or silence or painting or What
I
it
was
looks like.
I was actually thinking based on my experience of silence.
Mhm.
I noticed that silence or like not opening your mouth does not necessarily means that you are like being silent. For example, there are so many. I noticed there were so many thoughts. We're supposed to have like 60,000 thoughts or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
science says. But then I noticed after many hours, I was like, no shit, it's true. I have so many because I was not speaking, but then I was like, wait, this is interesting. So I'm on silence, not speaking to anyone, eating my food like this, looking at down at the floor while I'm working. But there was so much thoughts, so much nonsense, and then I thought, hey, okay, this is interesting because I'm giving myself the order for 3 days to not think. So how can I not control all these amounts of thoughts that I'm not even creating? It was like they were just like they're like clouds actually. They started
Mhm.
looking like clouds. And that's when I learned like, okay, so all this nonsense is not me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but to get to that point of being able to clear the sky and see what it is that you actually have to see for yourself, you have to get in touch with that part of yourself, which some people can call it God, which it's funny because when I went to India, I met all kinds of gods. There was the monkey god, you know, taxi drivers, they have the monkey god. So I was like, there's so many gods. So it's fine. You can call it God, you can call it divine energy,
Mhm.
life energy, but there is something inside of you that is beyond words
Mhm.
and beyond all kinds of nonsense that you can come up or create or generate. So
Mhm.
as soon as you get in touch with that part of yourself, even if it's for a couple minutes a day, or let's not even go that far. Honestly, for somebody that is beginning in this kind of journey,
Mhm.
even 30 seconds of that, having a taste of it for like 30 seconds, it makes a huge impact because they never felt that before.
Mhm.
I'm coming back to the example of the woman with the, because it was traumatizing. I was like, she's going to kill someone or something.
In the car.
Yeah, like, uh, just, I'm like, I was actually wondering where was the last time that this woman enjoyed peacefully, even if it's your burger, but like, taking the time to look at the sesame seeds, like grabbing one sesame seed from the bottom, tasting it before you take the first bite. I'm like, it was so sad actually. I was like, this is sad. You can have a BMW, you can have a Mercedes, you live in the United States, but it is heartbreaking that you have to eat your food on way to whatever the place that it is that you're going. I thought it was disgusting. The fact that humans have to live that way. Fortunately, there are ways to avoid that. And I'm sure I have some tools to help someone if they want to.
Yeah, tell us how to get a hold of you.
Yes, they can find me on alivedesign.org. Also, Jonathan R. Coaching on Instagram and Jonathan R. Coaching at gmail.com as well. TikTok also, yeah. Jonathan R. Coaching. Well,
Of course, well, and we'll put those connections in the show notes, and they can find you at alivedesign.org. Yeah, you have a lovely page there. So, okay, Dean, your last thoughts and how do people get a hold of you?
My last thoughts are that most people probably waste their unhappiness by seeing it as something they're eager to escape as quickly as possible and
Mm,
not by seeing it as a sign that they need to retreat.
mm,
And that we all experience unhappiness of some sort,
mm.
and that the way out of and so all shortcuts out of it end up wasting your suffering, right? So whatever shortcut you're trying to get to escape it quickly, you end up wasting your happiness, which prolongs it.
Mm, mhm,
And instead it's really a sign of a need for retreat, a need for reflection, a need for contemplation. and a need to pull back.
Mhm.
People can find me at deanabbott.com or at deanabbott on Twitter.
Oh, good. Well, we're going to put you there. They can find you at alifedesign.org as well.
Okay, very good.
So,
Wasn't sure if that was up and running yet.
yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
It was wonderful to talk about personal retreats with you guys, and we encourage people to pause and reflect, take a little time out. In the beginning, you might have a list of things that you want to fix or repair or reconsider, but that is a path to happiness. So go ahead and take a look. All the things you need to get done can be done, and working with a coach can help you do it too. So until next time, it was great to see you all. Bye.